Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate cancer, bone and lung cancer survivor slash patient, still dealing with some lingering issues, but doing very well. Very happy to be here. Please like, subscribe, and make a comment in the comment section of the video and ring the notification bell so that you can get a video I posted every week so that you can be able to get those. And things in Texas are finally warming up. It's been super cold here. We've been as low as we've had a wind chill factor as low as -30, which it's really cold, really cold. We had a few pipes freeze in the house, but things are thawing out. I still have my washing machine lines are still frozen, but hopefully they'll come back online today. But I am so thrilled and so happy to have an amazing guest today, and her name is Britt Ross, and she's got an incredible story. And I hope that you engage with her and enjoy her story because I sure am looking forward to this. So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce her, Britt Ross. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hi, so yeah, as you said, my full name is Brittany, but I told him he could call me Britt. And so I am a little over a 24-year survivor of AML or acute myeloid leukemia, and just celebrated my 24-year anniversary on January 17th of this year. And I also am a wife and an aunt and a sister and a daughter and um as well as a singer and dancer and performer, and as well as a Disney nerd. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Britt. You are a long-time survivor and you're still very young.
Yep.
Um, so let's go to the beginning of your story. How old were you when you were starting to have symptoms? And
So
let's
I
talk about that.
was probably 13, going on 14 when my symptoms started to show up. It was basically kind of the normal stuff that kids get when they're in school together: bad flus, bad colds, bronchitis, eyes, strep throat. It's kind of the normal stuff when kids are going to school together. And then things progressively got worse, and I started to miss more and more school, and things kind of spiraled from there. Ended up getting a really bad case of pneumonia, and then I ended up with shingles all down the left side of my face. And on December 12th of 2000, I was diagnosed at the age of 15 with acute myeloid leukemia and was given 3 weeks to live and a 5 to 15% chance of survival.
So we talked about before we got on here uh, the support system that you've had, and talk about that because support systems are so important uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
to have that positive reinforcement from the people around you. Talk about that, please.
So I got really lucky. I grew up in an amazing family who literally were surrounding me through that entire battle 24 hours a day. My parents slept on a single air mattress bed in my hospital room with me. They never left my side until I started to get to a point where they could leave on the weekends, and then they would have friends or family that would come and stay with me. And so they were with me at all times. It happened to be that my brother-in-law happens to be an adult oncologist, and so he was working down the hall, and so I had him sitting in on every meeting and looking at every time they would do blood work, every scan they would do, like anything. He was involved in every choice and every decision that was being made. That took a lot of the stress and anxiety off of my parents and I, knowing that he was making sure the right choices and the right decisions were being made for me, and that I was getting the very best care possible, and that I had the top people working with me, and knowing that he was on top of that, so we didn't have that worry. And so we focused on just whatever we needed to do to get me through that battle. And We had an amazing support system of friends and communities that rallied around us the entire time, and I could not have done it and would never have survived and would never have gotten through it if it weren't for every single member of my family, my friends, all the people that literally came to help my parents take care of me and whatever. And I got really lucky. I have an absolutely extraordinary support system that has been around me from moment one.
That is very rare. Is there one moment that stands out in your mind that really propelled you to, inspired you or something that, really made a difference to you at that time?
Um, I mean, I think there were a couple different things at that time. My sister had found out that so I think the main thing was we'd found out that my sister was pregnant in November 2000. I got diagnosed in December 2000, which was going to be my first niece or nephew. And I made my sister and I are very close, though our ages are quite a big age difference between us. She's 13, almost 14 years older than me. But her and I are very, very close to each other. And um I made her a promise. And I said, no matter what, that kid's gonna have an aunt. I'm not going anywhere. Like I will be there to be able to be a part of her life or his life, and I will be able to, to help babysit and take care of them and help raise them and whatever. And that was a huge motivating factor for me to know that like I'd made a promise to my sister and I don't make promises that I can't keep. So
Man, that
that
is beautiful.
was a huge thing, just knowing I was like, oh, I made a promise to my sister. Like I can't, like I have to keep that promise. I can't break that promise.
Wow, that is beautiful. I love that. Absolutely love that. During your cancer journey, what would you say has been the hardest thing for you to overcome?
Um, I mean, I think the thing that I now deal with, which I think a lot of people don't realize or maybe just are not aware of, is I think the the anxiety, the PTSD, it's the stuff that you can't see that isn't can't it's all internal. You can't see it on the outside. And I think people look at me and they go, "Oh, you're in remission and you're healthy and normal and everything is like back to the way it was and it's all good and whatever." And I was like, it's I wish it was that simple. It's not. Like, like I wish it was that, but I was like, that girl that you knew at 15, like she's gone, like she's not here anymore. Like and so I think I think those kinds of issues in terms of the survivorship part of it, I think there's a lot of aspects that people either just aren't aware of or that people like, that don't maybe get talked about as much or um, that are not necessarily out there as much as is kind of the psychological and the mental and the emotional part of it.
Yeah, you said something that really caught my attention. You said that that girl
Yeah.
that got before cancer is gone. So how did you deal with that?
I mean, I think I continue to deal with it. I think there's definitely moments where like that kid comes back because like obviously I had to go from being a kid to being an adult in a moment. There was no time for me to be able to make that jump. And so, I think when my husband takes me to Disney and we do things like that, like I can go back to being that little 5-year-old girl in it, in a candy store. And so those little pieces, or when I'm dancing and I'm on stage and I'm performing and things like that, those are the moments when like I feel like myself again and I feel like me again. And I think those are the moments that I try to kind of focus on, and those that I try to do the things that I know bring me joy and make me happy and that remind me that there are still parts of her that will show up occasionally. But I think in a lot of ways, I had to stop being a kid and become an adult really quickly. And so I didn't get a chance to really sort of make that transition from being a kid to being an adult.
One of the things I have interviewed uh, several childhood cancer patients.
Oh,
Um, in fact, I've interviewed actual uh,
yeah,
actual children
yeah,
with cancer.
yeah,
Um, what I noticed is the vast majority are so mature for their age.
absolutely. Well, we've had to be. We weren't given an option. There was no choice. We were learning things at a young age that most people may never learn in their lifetimes. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a different world.
Yeah.
Uh, you know what's fascinating to me is, like even when I was in the throes of, the worst, um, how some people get it and some people have no clue.
Yeah.
And talk about that. Did that enter your life at all?
Um, I mean, I think I've certainly come across people at some of the events that I've spoken at and things like that who don't maybe have a personal connection to it and just happened to see that the event was happening and decided they wanted to be a part of it, but they didn't actually have a personal connection to it. And so I sort of became, when they met me, I sort of became that personal connection for them. Um, so, and I don't think it's that people like don't want to know about it or don't want to like help or don't want to be a part of it in some way. Like, I think it's just that like some people just, I don't know. I think sometimes we're all so kind of in our own sort of bubble that like we can't see what's going on outside of that bubble. And so, um, yeah, I think it's just a matter of sort of, you know, being able to kind of be aware of what's happening outside of sort of your little, you know.
How long would you say the worst part of your journey? What period are we talking about?
Um, I mean, I would say, I guess, probably I got diagnosed at 15, and then my story has taken a lot of twists and turns, and things have happened down the road after that. I mean, there's still things that I deal with today, so I don't know that it's ever necessarily fully stopped. Like I don't think that's
No, I mean,
as we
I'm talking about the worst of it.
the worst of it was definitely between 15 and probably 15 and 17,
Hmm.
like that.
Why was it the worst?
I mean, obviously, when I was going through chemo, that was probably the absolute worst of it. And that was 80 days in the hospital, and I did two separate rounds. So I did the first round was 35 days in, and then I was sent home for a 3 week break, and then I did 45 days in. So it was a total of 80 days altogether um,
Wow.
in the
That's a
hospital.
long time in the hospital.
Long time. It was a long, like, and that included Christmas, New Year's, my sweet 16, my parents' anniversary. Like, so there were a lot of sort of moments that I wish I obviously hadn't had to be in the hospital on especially on those kind of special occasions. It would have been nice not to have to do that. But I knew that I realized that like we have to do what we have to do. And like if this is the way to get rid of it, then like it has to get done. And so yeah, I mean, I did what I had to do. But I mean, I had tons of side effects. I mean, luckily, I think because of certain drugs that they gave me, like I think my brain has sort of blocked out the very worst of it, so I don't have to constantly deal with that trauma all the time. But there's definitely my mom kept a record of everything. My mom's an amazing artist. And she has drawings and records of everything that was happening, which she hasn't allowed me to see or look at or go through just because she doesn't want to re-traumatize me. Um, and so I think, there are little moments. I'm telling I have lots of pictures of things and whatever. So I have little like flashes of moments that I that I will occasionally I'll remember. Um, and I think also, obviously, I was dealing with it at an age where I was very aware of what was happening and what was going on. I mean, I was a teenager, so I was fully aware of what was going on at the time.
So, were you homeschooled at that time, or how
I
did you deal with school?
Yeah, so I started getting homeschooled after I was done with chemo and I was out of the hospital. I was given an amazing homeschool tutor who I'm still incredibly close with to this day. Her and her husband are like surrogate grandparents. They're amazing. They live in Fort Myers, Florida, and so I get to see them occasionally, which is amazing. Um, and we still talk on the phone, and we're still very much in contact with each other and are still in each other's lives. And she's been a godsend. Um, and so she would come to the house and work with me on my academics. Initially, when I couldn't go to school because I had no immune system, and so I wasn't able to physically go into school, and so she would come and work with me and tutor me to get me caught up with my sophomore and junior. She worked with me sophomore and junior and the first 6 months of my senior year. Um, and so eventually I was slowly able to start kind of going in for more, so not necessarily the academic part of it, but like I would go in for like art or like music or like things that like were a little more relaxed and a little bit more easygoing. And I would go in for like a couple of hours and then my parents would come and pick me up and bring me home or whatever. And so it's kind of whatever I could handle. If I could handle going for longer, then I would try to push myself a little bit and go for a longer period of time. Um, but yeah, she was amazing. I think she would work with me. I think it was like I want to say 3 days a week, like 3 days a week, 4 days a week, something like that. And she was amazing. My family fell in love with her, and she adored my family and still does. And so I'm still very much connected to her, which is
That's
amazing.
awesome. What about friends at that age? Because friends
Ooh.
are always important. So, could you
Especially as
talk
a
about that?
teenager. Yeah, especially as a
Right.
teenager. You're trying to figure out who you are and where you belong and where you fit in and who your people are and trying to sort of navigate that world and to have that thrown in on top of everything else, it became kind of incredibly tough to make friends. I was in 3 high schools in 4 years, and like I was always kind of the new kid and whatnot. So it was tough to kind of, and everybody in my schools knew who I was because my schools always ended up doing a school newspaper article on me with, picture like, so everybody knew me as the kid with cancer. And so that was sort of, that became frustrating to try and like fit in and belong and make friends when everybody knew me as just the kid that had cancer. And I was like, there's more to me than that. Like, that's not all of who I am. Like, if you just take the time to get to know me, like you'll see, like there's more to me than just that. It's.
So, how did the kids relate to you as far as that go?
Well,
They were like nice to you, but stay
I
away
don't,
from me kind of thing?
yeah, I don't think they did. Like, and I think part of the problem is there isn't. I feel like there should be a class in middle school and high school. There should be a required class where they teach students how to deal with real world situations and like real life circumstances. Because I think the problem is that like kids are not taught how to handle something like that or like the right things to say or like how to approach somebody that's dealing with that. Like I think they don't know, especially at that age, like they don't know how to deal with that or how to handle that. Like, they don't
At
and
any age.
I don't think it's like if they're trying to do it intentionally or like I don't think they were trying to do it on purpose. Like I think it was just they just didn't know how to handle it or how to deal with it. Like, so I think part of one of the things that I would love to see happen is like being able to make the transition easier, especially for kids that are that age, being able to make that transition a lot easier and a lot more smooth. So when a child like that starts to come back into school, they're kind of welcomed in with open arms, and the students are sort of they're given sort of preparation for that and told, okay, like she's gonna come back to school, like this is what's happening, like here's what's going on, and like here that you're welcome to like, you know, just treat her like you would your friends and just like, just welcome her back in and like make her feel comfortable and just, and I think it's just if we can make that easier, especially for kids that are dealing with it at, as a teenager, I think it would, or even in later middle school, it would be nice if that was an easier and more
Uh,
smooth transition.
so did you have like a best friend at school?
I have a childhood best friend who I've literally known since birth. Our parents were best friends long before we were a twinkle in their eye, and we went through elementary and middle school together, and we're still best friends today. Um and we were in separate high schools, but like we saw each other when we were able to, um and we talked on the phone and things like that. But I think in terms of school, I didn't. It was really hard for me to be able to fit in and belong and find my people and be able to kind of know, where my place was and whatever. Because like I said, I was in three high schools in 4 years, and it was, and I was dealing with so much at the time, and so that it was hard to be able to really make friends because I was always kind of the new kid and whatever. And um, so unfortunately, like I didn't really get to sort of make friends in high school.
I totally understand. You moved around a lot. I mean, you were dealing
Yeah,
with cancer and dealing with changing school three times in 4 years. That's, I
yeah,
mean, the average kid,
yeah,
can't handle that, let alone you're dealing with this
yeah.
gorilla on your back as well. So,
Well, I
uh,
think part of the reason when I was 18, we moved from Maryland to San Diego. Uh, I mean, the first part of that was that my brother-in-law took a job with a private practice out there, moved my sister and my oldest niece out there, and my parents didn't want to be away from their first grandkid, and I didn't want to be away from my sister, my brother-in-law, and my niece, and so we ended up following them a few months later. And I was like, I told my parents, I was like, I need a fresh start. I'm tired of being known as the kid with cancer. Like, there's more to me than that. Like, I need a chance to be able to make friends and not have that be the sole focus and not have that be like the only thing that they know me for and whatever. And so I finished the last 6 months of my senior year in San Diego and sort of was able to finally sort of not be known as like the sick kid. Um, and so that was nice to sort of be able to sort of be more of myself and feel like I could make friends and whatever. I mean, I didn't necessarily make like, a lot of good friends, but like I at least was able to like not have everybody know me as the kid with cancer.
oh, I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult. I mean, that is so di childhood is difficult enough
Yeah,
without cancer, but to have
absolutely.
cancer to deal with as well, I mean, and that's why I believe that so many younger people with cancer have to mature so quickly because there's like an understanding
Yeah,
that you need to grasp like
yeah, for
as
sure.
soon as possible.
Well, I think also one of the good things that I looked at is that it taught me lessons that I may not have learned until much later in life. I learned what it means to be a real true friend, and people I thought were my real friends that were really acquaintances, people I thought I knew and sort of realized they weren't really my friends, and like and it just so I had to kind of learn the hard way, life lessons that may have taken me much longer to learn had that not happened.
So Britt, you're married now.
Yeah.
Uh, talk about that. How did that happen? Talk about the story behind that
I
because
think one of the many things that, when you're given 3 weeks to live and a 5 to 15% chance of survival, I was told you're not going back to high school, you're not graduating high school, you're not going to college, you're not graduating from college, you're not going to meet the man of your dreams, you're not going to get married, you're not going to have a home of your own, you're not like I was told all those things, and pretty much all the things they said would never happen and now all ended up happening. Because for me, it was like, keep telling me what I can't do and see what happens. Keep saying no to me and see what happens. Like that, and it was like the more they tell me no, the more likely I am to do it. And so um I think, yeah, I mean, my parents told me, when the right person is meant to show up, you'll be in the right place at the right time and it'll happen naturally and the right guy will show up. And, and luckily he did. And I'm an incredibly lucky woman to have an amazing husband. And he has been with me through some rough moments. Um, and, we've definitely had some medical stuff that has come up with me over the last, 13 years. And he has stuck with me through thick and thin and has been a real trooper. And he takes incredible care of me and spoils me and pampers me and treats me like a princess. I'm really, really lucky.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Um, what would you like to leave our audience with as far as, what's been the most important thing that you've talked about or something that you want to emphasize to our
Um,
audience?
Whatever your circumstances are, whatever it is you're dealing with, just know like that if you're willing to do what it takes and you set your heart and mind to whatever it is you want to achieve or accomplish or whatever it is you want to do, and you don't take no for an answer and you don't quit and you don't give up. I mean, everybody kept saying 3 weeks to live, 3 weeks. And I was like, yeah, you can sit there and screaming at me till you're blue in the face. Doesn't mean it's going that way, but sure, if you want to sit here and go right ahead. But like that's not happening. So, I think it's just a matter of, you know, not quitting and not giving up and sticking with it and being willing to push through whatever your circumstances are and just setting your heart and mind to it and being willing to do whatever it takes and no matter how hard or difficult it may seem or how impossible it may seem, just know I've learned there is no such thing as the impossible dream because the word impossible literally says I'm possible. So, I think that for me, and it's also having a positive attitude. I think it's, I have a quote that I love that says, you can complain because roses have thorns, or you can rejoice because thorns have roses. And so you can choose to look at the negative or you can choose to look at the positive, and you got to be willing to find the silver lining and be willing to stick with that positive mindset. And I promise that if you stay in that mindset, good things will come out of it.
That's such an important point. You had mentioned earlier, tell our audience what you had mentioned earlier about the 90%.
Yeah, so I think that at least I had been told that the battle with cancer is 90% mental and 10% physical. And I think that applies to a lot of other things as well. And so I think if you have that right mindset and you're willing, like I said, you're willing to find the silver lining and it really is a 90% mental battle and it's 10% physical. And, so I think that's you gotta just stay positive and be willing to hang in there and and I promise you in the end, good things will come from it.
That is awesome. I have one final question for you, and it's unrelated to what we've talked about.
Yeah, sure.
If you had the power to make the world a better place, what would you do?
I think for me it's knowing that I've been given a second chance to live and a second chance to really live life to the fullest. And I think it's obviously the ultimate fairy tale for all of us would be to put a stop and an end not only to childhood, teen, and young adult cancer, but all cancers in general. And I think I'm trying to do everything in my power and do everything I can do to help make that happen and to try to do my part in that. But I mean, look, I tell, any people that I talk to that are in that battle, I'm like, look, if I could snap my fingers and clap my hands and make it go away, like I would do it, no questions asked. Like nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should have to face that and deal with that. And, if I had that magical power to be able to just snap my fingers and it would go away, like, you know, I would do it, no questions asked.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Britt, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and the audience. We really appreciate,
Of course.
your positive spirit and your positive attitude. In fact, uh, the way Britt and I connected was on our Facebook page. And I asked the question, you know, is your cancer journey more positive or more negative? And, we got answers. I mean, I got one answer, and I understand a woman lost her child,
Yeah.
and she said all negative, which I understand. But then some people said more positive than negative, and Britt comes on, and it was just like, uh, just talk about that real briefly and before we close off here.
It's really interesting. So before I actually got sick, my dad had actually, I know people don't have the greatest opinion of him now, but at the time, my dad had read Lance Armstrong's book about his journey. And then he gave it to my mom and then gave it to me. I read it cover to cover, probably 24, 48 hours. And then I got diagnosed just a few weeks after finishing it. And one of the things he said, I can honestly say that cancer is the best thing to ever happen to me. And at the time, I thought he was crazy. I was like, how could you possibly say that? Like, how could you say that cancer is the best thing to ever happen to you? And, and I was like, you're insane. And then, but now, as a 40-year-old adult, when I look back on all the good that has come from it and all the amazing people I've gotten the opportunity to meet and all the incredible experiences I've gotten to have and just the amazing support system that I have around me and just the life that I get to live now, like I can honestly say it really truly is the best thing to ever happen to me.
Wow, that is beautiful. And with that, we're gonna end this wonderful, wonderful interview with Britt Ross. Thank you so much for sharing this uh, incredible insight. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you out there for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. Please like, subscribe, make a comment in the comment section, ring the notification bell so that you get a video every week. I post it every week. Haven't missed since early 2021 when this channel started. Uh, and I'd also like to impress upon you to, just like Britt, make the most out of each and every day because each and every day is a blessing. And it is an absolute gift that we have every day that we're able to open our eyes and experience a new day. Make the most out of each and every day, each and every hour, each and every minute, and each and every second. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you so much, and have a blessed week.